welcome to Saturday Stories. This is the Society of Illustrators illustrator-led program that we hold every month. And I'm Claire Pernice. It's my absolute pleasure and delight to be introducing Sara Varon this morning. And Sarah's joining us from Chicago. So if any of you are from Chicago, let us know. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what's going on at the museum, and then we'll get started. I'll introduce you in more detail to Sara. So we have a big show that's going to be running until the end of October, and that's the artist perspective from Brotherman to Batman. So this is comic arts. This is dynamic illustrations by comic artists who are African-American. It's a fantastic show. You'll have plenty of time to see it. So for any links that we have in the chat, you can follow that through to look up the details. You can see the protocols for visiting the museum too. And then for kids who like to do character development and stories and want to do some art classes over the summer, I'm running 2 series. One will be in July and one will be in August. And also there'll be a link to that in the chat, but you can find everything on the Society of Illustrators website. And I also want to thank a new sponsor for this program, and that is the Cornelia Bailey Foundation. So thank you to this foundation for sponsoring our program and bringing it to you all for free. That's very exciting. You can join us from wherever you are in the world, and we can visit illustrators in their art studios from wherever they are in the world. So it's a really special program to be running virtually, and this obviously started during the pandemic. We do hope to have more in-person Saturday Stories running in the future. I want to encourage you all, you've got your art materials ready, drawing, pens, paper. We're going to be doing some amazing characters. We have one of the best in the field. Sara Varon is absolutely prolific at creating really endearing, charming characters and special friendships between unique characters. Sara is from Chicago, born in Chicago. She did live also in Brooklyn, but she's back in Chicago now. We'll be coming to New York as well frequently, I'm sure. We'll see her there. But some of the fun books that she's created with friendships involved, and unlikely friendships at that. Robot Dreams is one, and that's between a dog and a robot. And actually it's a wordless graphic novel. She's also done a food-oriented character book called Bake Sale. And that's between, I think it's an eggplant and a cupcake.
Yes, my memory, yeah.
Yes, very, very fascinating combo there. I'll be asking you questions about how you came up with.
How did they meet? Yeah.
How did they meet? And also a more eccentric duck and a more well put together duck in Odd, is it called Odd Duck? Yes, Odd Duck.
Yeah.
Odd Duck. And that's a fantastic story as well. So Sara has won many awards and accolades and honors, great reviews and praise. And she also won a very special fellowship with the Maurice Sendak Fellowship in 2013, which is a real honor as well. So there's nobody better to teach you how to do these amazing characters than Sara this morning. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what she's going to share with us. And also I really look forward to you sending in your drawings. So please don't be hesitant. We'd love to see whatever you draw, because your characters are your unique characters. So you can follow along, but you'll draw in your own style as well. So you can send that to my email. That will be in the link, that'll be linked in the chat. And you can also send it to Sara. Sara has an Instagram and also a website that will be in the chat too. So I think without further ado, we're going to get started with new shoes. Now, I did just want to have a little sidebar, because Sara has a special assistant that works with her in her art studio, and that's Sweet Pea, her dog. And Sweet Pea's probably somewhere on the floor down there.
She usually is, but she's by the open window today.
Oh, she's looking at
listening to the birds.
But she's featured in a lot of the books, and actually she's featured in this one too, in the party scene. But Sara's going to read a little bit of this graphic novel. Now remember, graphic novels are a lot longer than picture books. This one has 205 pages in it, so she's going to read an excerpt from it. And then she's going to share with you how she came up with these characters, which I happen to know that she did some research when she visited Guyana, sorry, tongue twisted there, Guyana in South America. And so she saw a rainforest, visited, saw lots of different animals, and that gave her some good inspiration while she was on that trip, which brings me to you looking out when you're on trips for things that might inspire you to draw different characters or come up with stories too. So thank you so much again for joining us this morning, Sara. And over to you. I'll talk to you more during the workshop portion. So do ask your questions in the chat or in the Q&A. I'll be happy to share your questions with Sara later. Thank you.
Thanks for that super kind and generous intro. And thanks to everybody for coming. So I have a slideshow for you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. All right. Okay. So I always show, when I do stuff for kids, I always show this picture so that you know it's hard to believe, but I was once a kid too. I would think I'm about 6 or 7 in this picture, and that's me with our family dog, whose name was Snoopy, which I think is a popular name for a family dog. It's the 1970s, I think, and I think Snoopy's about to run away. I think she's looking for a good spot to run off to. And so when I was that age, I really love cartoons, and things are really different with the TV now. But you had to like be in front of the TV at a certain time, at a certain time of day on a certain channel. So kids would watch Saturday morning cartoons, and these were, or actually lunchtime cartoons. I think these were on at lunchtime. I would come home for lunch, and these were the ones that I really liked. I mean, there are all kinds of cartoons on, but I really like the animal cartoons, ones about animals, ones that were funny. A lot of times there's like, obviously always talking animals. A lot of times they're talking to a person and the person is talking back to them. Animation was 2D back then. So it had these really flat colors, or like, I guess you could say solid colors, and thick black outlines. So in case some of you, I think, might recognize these because some of them have made a comeback in movies. On the top left is Super Chicken, top right is Sherman and Peabody, bottom right is Underdog, and then the bottom left is Tennessee, Tuxedo, and Chumley, who are always trying to escape from the zoo, which is a little bit sad in hindsight. They never succeeded. That's why the show always went on. But anyway, if you look at them, you'll notice that the black outline, kind of the rounded shapes, and this was a huge influence on me. Oh, and here's Rocky and Bullwinkle. So that was a really big influence on my stuff. So I'm going to really quickly show my books, and you'll see really the influence of those drawings. And so this is in order of my books. There's Chicken and Cat. So again, you can see, the animals, characters, the sort of like round, clean lines, and the flat colors. And I think in making my books, I've made maybe about a dozen, and I feel like each one is a stepping stone to the next one. So I think I've learned something in making each one that makes the next one better. So this is a picture book. It had no words. This is my first graphic novel, Robot Dreams. And it's really, you'll see, each one looks the same visually, although the story is different. So this was my first graphic novel. It also is wordless. I wasn't a very good writer. I don't find myself like to be super clever or great with words. So it was really easy in the beginning for me to tell a story with no words. And this also has no words, Chicken and Cat. And then in between, came out in 2013. I worked with a writer, Cecil Castellucci, and she is a great writer. It was such a fun story. And I learned a lot working with words. So even though I got this assignment first, I finished this book first, and I kind of used what I learned about working with her story to write my own story. So this has a lot of words. It's a story about a cupcake and an eggplant. It has recipes if you like to bake. This is Sweaterweather, and then this is New Shoes, which came out in 2018. And I'm going to read you an excerpt from New Shoes. I think this is my favorite book of all the ones that I've done. This is a picture book called Hold Hands. And this, I think, is the last one that came out during the pandemic. Actually, it's called My Pencil and Me, and it actually is the only one that has a person as a main character in it. That person is a cartoon version of me and actually Sweet Pea. So Sweet Pea is my assistant. Like, she is in real life, but things happen in the book that could not really have happened in real life. So here we are, New Shoes. So I'm going to just read the first chapter. I think it's about 6 or 7 chapters. I think maybe 6 chapters. So I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of the story if you have not read it. So it is about this donkey named Francis, who lives in a small village in the jungle. And, you know, he lives in a place where all the animals are kind of domestic animals like chickens and pigs. And he runs he's a shoemaker. And this is what his town looks like. It's very pleasant. Everybody gets along. And there he is again, you know, passing his neighbors. And he needs to get materials for a special order of shoes one day. And the monkey who usually gives him those materials is gone. So Francis has to go into the jungle, into this unexplored territory to find what he needs. And in the process, he finds the missing monkey, and there's a little story. But he also, like me, while I was writing the book, he also learns a lot about jungle animals and fruits that grow in the jungle. Some fruits you probably know, like cashews and bananas. I didn't know where they come from other than the supermarket. So this was like, you know, so it was pretty cool for me to see actually where they grow. My favorite thing is that I learned, which is in the book if you read it, is that cashews actually grow on a fruit. They're a nut and they look like this. I have a picture a little bit later. The nut grows at the bottom of the fruit. And so there's actually a ton of, if you live in a city like New York, you might not know this. If you live in a more, you know, if you live near the country, you might know this. But there's a ton of fruits that grow, and as soon as they get picked, they spoil. So we never see them because the food that we get is shipped and it takes a couple days. So what we get is that the foods that travel well. Cashew fruit is not a food that travels well, but it's super delicious if you ever get a chance to try it. And here's some plants that I learned about. And so in the jungle, Francis meets all these animals that he thought seemed really scary. And he's able to make friends with them, like the jaguar and the wild boar and the howler monkey. And at the end, there's a big party because that's a great way to end a story. And then also here's the end paper. So I also like to, something that I think is really fun about making books is that when you're done at the end, you get to do the packaging part of it. So you get to draw the end paper. And if you're lucky, there's like a paper jacket around your book. And if you're lucky, you get to draw a different picture underneath. So if you have a book, you might check, because sometimes there's like a little surprise underneath. And this is the jacket that you see.
I love that too, yes.
Yeah, sometimes there's a secret picture. And, you know, as a bookmaker, that's really fun for me to make. And the end papers are really fun. The stuff in the back of the book is really fun. Sometimes you have, in a longer book, the pages have to be multiples of 16. So you kind of have to fill in some space if your story doesn't exactly come to like 16 or 32 or 48 pages. So it's fun to think of that stuff. So here, this is my end paper, and I love drawing on top of photos and like imagining these fictional characters in my world. So this was, you know, an opportunity for me to do that. And I was glad that the editors let me put that in there. So this is actually where my husband is from Guyana, and this is his town. This is what it looks like. It's very colorful and very green. So I'm going to start the story. Chapter 1. It's Francis and his neighbors who are chickens. This is a picture that kind of introduces you to his environment. So you can see he lives in, you know, a really like lush green space and a colorful space. So Francis is saying, "Good morning, Sister Chicken," and the chicken is saying, "Good morning, Francis." And so I'm going to kind of interject with my, you know, comments about the story, but it was based again on my travels to Guyana, which couldn't be more different than New York. And one of the things that I thought was really nice about it was that people on the street, like some other countries, you know, they refer to people as sister or brother or auntie, like they just call their neighbor sister or brother, auntie, and or granny. And I thought that was really sweet. So I remember showing this to my friend who said, "Is the chicken a nun?" And the chicken they're not nuns. It's just like sort of a friendly, like you know, like miss, but I feel like it's a little bit nicer than calling someone miss, like instead of, "Hey, good morning, Miss Chicken," it's, "Hey,
yeah,
good morning." So anyway, Francis had wanted to be a shoemaker since he was a young foal. And here he is walking through the village saying, "Good morning, Patrick." And Patrick the pig is saying, "Good morning, Francis." And you can see the look of the town. And it was fun for me to think of, the names of the animals, since it's Guyana was a British colony, so people have very British names. And I thought as well about the narration, which is separate than the word balloons. The word balloons are saying, they're telling, what the character is saying, but sometimes you also want to have some other narration in there. So they kind of, excuse me, it makes for a weird read aloud, but I'm going to read it aloud that way anyway. So Francis had wanted to be a shoemaker since he was a young foal. As a grown donkey, it was his aspiration to make the best shoes he possibly could. And then here I have reference photos that I'll show you at the end. But something else that was really amazing is that everything there, it's less like that now, but when I first started going, everything was made by hand. And people didn't, there's not really machinery. Like now you might see, printed signs, but like all the signs were hand painted. And I love that. So all the signs in the background are signs that were, that I saw in the area. Like, I think Big Kiss was actually a taxi service, which, I changed it to Big Kiss Hair Salon. And there was a hair salon that was painted like this. But the fruit stands look like that. And then there was actually a Cuties New York style fashion clothing store, which seemed really funny because there was nothing New York about it. And here's Francis going to, so we got a little tour of his town, and we got to see his neighbors in the background. And he's going to his shoe shop, and he's opening the window. He's opening it up like it's he's starting his day. And there he is in his shop. And it says, "Animals came from far and wide to purchase shoes made by Francis." And so here's his shop. So again, I had to, figure out what tools would a shoemaker have. So I actually had to do a lot of research because there are very few people in the United States who make shoes by hand. So I managed to find somebody in Pennsylvania, and I went out and I interviewed him, and I took reference photos, and he kind of told me how it works. So I can show you some pictures of that at the end. But I wanted Francis to have a job where he made stuff by hand, since that was such a big part of the community, and also something really utilitarian that everybody needs. And then I put little drawings in the background to let the reader know how many customers he has a lot of satisfied customers. And also I put his in the top right is a poster above his record player. That's a record player. In case people don't recognize, if you're not familiar with a record player, it plays music, and the squares underneath are records that you put on the turntable and they play music. So he's a big fan of Miss Manatee. And then it says, he used only the finest coconut wood for the soles. He padded the insoles with wool so they'd be extra comfortable. This came from the goats down the road. The uppers were made from special fibers called wild tiger grass, which he purchased from his friend and neighbor, Nigel, a squirrel monkey. Once a week, Nigel would travel deep into the jungle to get the very best tiger grass for Francis's shoes. The downstairs chickens wove the tiger grass into a very sturdy fabric that was so durable, he advertised, that you could trek through jungles in his shoes. Truth be told, he'd never been to the jungle or even outside the village, but he was certain it was true. He was especially good with embellishment. He loved to embroider leaves along the ankles, flowers on the heels, and fruits on the toes. For an additional fee, he would also embroider portraits on the toes. And there's a monkey getting his mother's portrait on his shoes. While he cut and measured and sewed, animals from the village stopped by the shop to chat or listen to music. And so there they are. You can kind of see them all having a good time and hanging out, which is what a lot of people, there's a lot of hanging out there. They call it liming. I don't know why, as in lime, like the fruit, but maybe that's a British word. I don't know. So anyway, so there they are. They're listening to, this record is Lady Flea. So they're listening to, in my mind, they're listening to calypso music, which is like a local kind of music. And there's a lot of bands. I mean, all the names of the albums are based on kind of like a lot of musicians are called there's Lord Nelson or, Lady somebody or other, I guess like Lady Gaga. That's kind of common. There was, I don't know, I can't remember. There's King Sparrow. And so I made it Jolly Sparrow. But it sort of lended itself to my story really well. Francis had a renowned record collection. His favorite music was calypso. And there they are, everybody's looking at the records. And here they are listening to music, and the monkey, Nigel the monkey and Rhoda the parrot are dancing. And there's this dog hanging out, looking at the record collection. And so if you see in the top, the lyrics, mango, banana, and tangerine, sugar, and ackee, and cocoa bean, I actually have, that is taken from a song, so I can play that song for you. I'm gonna, let's see, I'm gonna stop my share, right? Oh no, I don't have to stop my share, but I can, it's taken from a song sung by this woman called, her name is Calypso Rose, and the name of the song is Underneath the Mango Tree, and I'm gonna play it for you. I'm gonna play you actually that little bit. Let's see, just rewinding it here. Okay, ready? Mango, banana, and tangerine, sugar, and ackee, and cocoa bean. Okay, so that gives you like a little bit of a sense. So it's really happy music. It just sounds
Very
great.
happy music, yeah.
Yeah, it like lifts your spirits, you know. Yeah, and she's really great, Calypso Rose. Most of them are men. I don't know how many women there are, but she's pretty great. So anyway, back to the story. Oh, let me make it full screen. One day, while he was having tamarind juice with a duck, an unfamiliar customer walked in. Good afternoon, Brother Donkey. I'm here to place an order for my friend, Miss Manatee. And as you can see, it's a caiman, which is like an alligator who would live in the river. She will be performing in the city and will need shoes for her trip onto land. And Francis is saying, Miss Manatee, the River Queen. And if you had been paying attention, you would have seen that they had been listening to records by Miss Manatee, the River Queen. And the ducks, you know, his eyebrows are raised. He's really excited. And the caiman is saying, here are her measurements. Let me know when her shoes are ready. And the duck is going, and, you know, Francis is smitten. And there he is. He's putting on her record and he's singing along with it. And it says, all afternoon, Francis imagined how to make shoes for his favorite singer. And he's imagining fish on the toes, waves on the side, pictures of river otters. And there he is with a pencil and paper, like you will be in a few minutes. And he's walking through town and he's saying open toes. And Patrick the pig is saying, good evening, Francis. And Francis isn't hearing Patrick the pig because he's still thinking about the shoes. And it says, but the best part was imagining the moment when he could present them to her. Mm-hmm. And he's in his mind, he's saying, so pleased to meet you, Miss Manatee. And he's lying in a hammock, which you might do if you lived in that town. That night, Francis could hardly sleep. He couldn't wait until morning to visit Nigel and pick up the wild tiger grass that would become Miss Manatee's shoes. He could tell Nigel all about it over a game of dominoes. Nigel would be thrilled. So there he is imagining, you know, telling Nigel about the shoes. And if you're writing a book, a really good place to end a chapter is kind of with like a surprise. So it ends where he's really excited. And then the next page, if you read the book, you could get it at your library, is there's a problem. So, you know, Nigel is missing. So a good way to open the next chapter is like you want a conflict. So you want to open with a conflict. I think that kind of like sets up a nice dynamic. It makes people want to read the story. So each chapter kind of opens like something nice is happening, and then you're like, oh, wah, wah, wah. And then you start with this conflict. Oh, what's going on here? Oh, I think I have an extra, there's a blank panel in there. So again, I was inspired by my travels. The book was inspired by my travels to Guyana, which is where my husband is from. It's traveling is amazing. You meet people you would never meet. You see things that you don't see at your home. It just broadens your, worldview, and it's a great inspiration for making stories, like seeing new things. You know, you see things differently the first time you see them. My husband, the first time we went to Guyana, I bought a travel book because I like to be prepared. And this is the travel book that I bought, and there was an animal on it. And I think of myself as somebody who likes animals, but I was like, I have no idea what that animal is. And so that was really kind of exciting to me that I could go to this place where like all these animals that I didn't even know existed were living. So this is, if some of you might know this, it's Tamandua. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's like an anteater that lives in a tree. It's the cousin of the anteater, like a giant anteater. And then these are, so to write this story, I took so many pictures, and now there's phones. Like, technology has changed so much. Like, in my first book, I had to take pictures with a camera, the kind with that you put film in. I'm sure most people, if you're like, you're much younger than me, you don't know what that is. But you know, you put the film in, you take a picture, you have no idea what you took picture, or you know what it's going to look like. You take it to get developed, and then you get it back in a week or whatever. And then when I did this, and then digital cameras came out in the early 2000s, or for me anyway, they came into my life in the early 2000s, and that just like changed my world, because suddenly I could go places and I could take pictures and like collect them, and then I could bring those pictures home. Now phones take pictures, but at that time phones didn't take pictures. So I went around taking pictures of the things I saw. And so these were the things I saw that were like super fascinating to me when we went there. So please disregard all the garbage. Something, if you live in a city, you have garbage service, and you may take that for granted, but not everybody has garbage service, and as a result, sometimes there's a lot of garbage in some of these places. But anyway, what was something that was really interesting to me is that there were animals just walking around the place, like they owned it, like doing their own thing. And so there was this donkey just hanging around, and like I never see stuff like that in Brooklyn or Chicago. And I thought that was like super, like I was like, where did they go at night? And my husband John was like, you know, just leave them alone, they're doing their thing, they know what they're doing. So they're kind of like having this, you know, parallel life that's pretty autonomous. And so this was the first animal, it's because this was the first animal I saw like that. This was kind of my inspiration for the book. So Francis became a donkey. And here, this is what the town looks like. Not a lot of people have cars, and there's not that many paved roads. There aren't that many roads. So the animals can kind of walk more freely through the town than they would in like New York City or Chicago, because there isn't a lot of traffic. There's a lot of rivers, and people often get places by boat. So there's, you know, there was goats walking around everywhere, and they're not, you know, they're just by themselves. They know what they're doing. They're like off to do their business. And there's just cows walking around, doing their shopping, I guess. Actually, what they're really doing is they're probably going to eat the garbage. But, you know, they know where it is. They're going to get there by themselves. They're going to go home at night. They know how to get around. And again, another cow just hanging out by the river. I mean, I think some places you might have seen chickens walking around. I know like in Hawaii, sometimes there's like wild chickens walking around. Probably, I mean, you might see that in New York or Chicago if a chicken gets loose, but you don't usually see, you know, large livestock. And then this is an anteater, who was pretty cool. I had never seen an anteater, and in fact, I drew an anteater in Robot Dreams, and I had really never seen one, so it doesn't look anything like a real anteater, but now I've seen one. In fact, I think the anteater in Robot Dreams is like playing in the snow, which anteaters live in the tropics, which I somehow didn't realize, but at the time I made it. But anyway, so here's an anteater, and he's really cool. He's like the size of or he or she is about the size of maybe like a German Shepherd. And
wow,
he's got this great hair that it looks like he lives in the savannah, which has really tall grass. So his hair kind of looks like tall, dry grass. It sticks up. And this is what the place looks like. So there's dirt roads. You know, there's many more people walking than driving, which is why the animals can kind of be loose. There's coconut trees everywhere. It's like super green and lush, and there's really colorful houses, and I really like that. And then this was John's sister's house. So I pretty much just drew this as Francis's house. You know, I made a few little changes. I think I made it yellow, but it's more or less the same house in the same yard. A lot of people have a lot of houses are in stilts, and I think maybe that's the influence of the Dutch. I think there are places where, like in the capital, it does flood. It's below sea level. It doesn't flood here, but people still have their houses on stilts, and then a lot of times they have stuff underneath. So a lot of people have chickens underneath their house. And then this is John lives on the side, or his family lives on the side that we're looking from, and then this is, they just call it over the river. It's where like the shops are. And so that's what it looks like. It's really colorful, and you take a little boat like this one on the right. It's a quarter, and someone drives. You hop on the boat. They take you across the river. And there's amazing and beautiful fruit stands everywhere. Again, there's a couple. Some of these are actually, to them, apples are exotic. So they have like apples in front, which I'm like, oh, apples. They're probably mealy. I'm sure they're like out of season. But the native fruits, or like the local fruits, are amazing. So there's there's like papayas, and there's pineapple. The pineapple is a little different. It's like long and skinny. It's really great. And then this is the picture of the cashew tree. And I just think they're so beautiful. Like there's so many different kind of plants than what I had seen, because I'm from the north of the United States. So there's a cashew tree, and I just loved the shape of the leaves. Like they're perfectly round, and they have these like perfect stripes on them, and the fruits are really bright and shiny. And here's John holding the fruit, so you can see the size perspective. And actually, the fruit hangs the other way, so the nut would be hanging off the bottom. And then I didn't know where all these things actually come from that I eat regularly. So pineapples grow on a bush. I thought they came from a tree, but now if you didn't know, they grow on a little bush. And then sort of and again, everything is like homemade there. In the spirit of that, at the end of the book, Francis and his friends make this like special vehicle for the manatee. When I proposed the story, I didn't realize that manatees didn't have feet. So I kind of like, in the beginning, I was like, oh, she's gonna have these really great shoes. I thought that they were like seals. Like seals kind of have flippers that are, yeah, they are feet that have become flippers, but manatees don't even have bones for legs anymore. So I was like, so that was like that, like kind of put a kink in my story, and I had to like come up with a new plot twist. So they make her a vehicle, and people are really inventive there. Like, I think it's really like, it's convenient for us that like when we have something breaks and we want a new one, we just go online and we order it and it comes to us. But there are things out like that. If you want something, you got to make it yourself. So people are really inventive, and there's that, I can't remember who said it, but necessity is the mother of invention, or something like that. So this person it's like a shop on the back of a motorcycle. So you can see the front part is a motorcycle, and the back is it's got 3 wheels on it, and there's like a little mobile shop. It's got these little doors that open up and make shade. And that's what it looks like from the other side. So it's pretty cool. And there's John in red, and it's like a little snow cone shop, I guess, that's mobile. And it's really cute, and it folds up. And this too is it's like a shop that you would pull behind a truck or something. So it's a little coconut shop. And then this guy also has a shop on wheels, but this time it's a bicycle. And he's selling he's a Rasta guy, so he's selling vegetarian meals. And he's got something else that I think is really cool about the place is that everything gets reused. So if there's like a 5-gallon bucket that, I don't know what trowel paste, or maybe it's like plaster or something like that, but he has recycled it, and each of his boxes and buckets is full of some vegetarian food that he's made and he's selling. And he's got a little horn that he can honk as he rides through the neighborhood. And then the other thing I loved were the signs. So this is the inspiration for the beauty salon that you saw in an earlier picture. This is New York Cuties, which I totally stole the whole thing. I even kept the color palette. Rudy's Little Business, and then a lot of hand painted signs they're spray painted. They're like spray paint stencils, and I love spray paint stencils, so they're really beautiful. And I took pictures of those as well. I don't remember why this one is in here. I guess just to show you how different some of the plants are. So there's some really super huge trees. I don't know how wide this is, but it's really wide. And it's it might be hundreds of feet tall. So it's got these things called buttresses that are like shelvy things that help the tree stand up. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. And this one here, so this is I learned a lot about plants doing research and then going there. But so this is a tree that it's a small tree. It lives lower in the jungle canopy, and it's got these roots on the bottom. So there might be trees above it that are blocking the sun, so it can kind of move its little legs a little bit so it could get better sunlight. So it's, it's just so different there. And all those things inspired me to make the story. And then the last thing is, or my last reference photo is the shoemaker. So this is the shoemaker studio. So I interviewed him, and actually something, if you're interested in a particular thing, people are almost always happy. Like if you find someone else who's interested in it, like people are almost always really happy to tell you about it. Like people love to tell you about something that they're interested in. So if you have, if you want to learn about whatever, like surfing or something, and you find someone who loves surfing and is really good at it, they'll probably tell you. So, maybe you can make a trade. Like I found this man and I paid him a little bit of money for his time and to let me, walk through his studio and ask questions and take pictures. And he was happy to do it. So that's always an option. I mean, it's kind of scary at first to like go up to a stranger and be like, hi, can I take your picture and ask some questions? But nobody's ever said no. And for me, I think people are kind of excited about the idea of being in a story. So these are pictures of his tools, which I would never have known, what to draw otherwise without having asked him. So these are the tools that were on Francis's desk. I think, let's see, I have about 5 more minutes, maybe. And so so again, as you can see, my stories are taken from, really taken from real life. And so my next book, I'm going to tell you real quick about my current project, which is about Sweet Pea, my dog, who obviously I'm obsessed with. And there she is again. And she is a detective. It's a detective series. So I drew her, like she's a little bit sassy, in my opinion. And so I had drawn this for, a 2018 New Year's card because it was the year of the dog. And I thought, oh, that would make a good character. And I had to come up with, a cast of characters for this book. It's a detective story, so there's got to be a lot of characters. So this time I went around and I asked most of my friends have pets. And I said, what's your pet's name? Send me a picture and tell me about their personality. So all of a sudden I had a cast of characters. So these are friends' pets. Some of them are not, like nobody has a raccoon or a possum, but or a deer. But most of them are, just taken from my friends' pets. These are the thumbnails. So this one is a comic. So there's some full pages, but more panels. So thumbnails are kind of like sketches. Here's my sketches. They're done in black and white. And then this is the final art. Sweet Pea is the character in blue. In my heart, I wanted her to be black, but the publisher was like, no, she's got to be a color. So she's blue. And then the 2 dogs are actually in real life, they're Sweet Pea's friends who lived across the street. And then this is another page of final art. So that's what it looks like. And this is where it's in the first book, there's a famous dog bone that goes missing. So this is the scene where they discovered the dog bone is missing, and it's very dramatic. And then the last thing I'll tell you about that's coming up is Robot Dreams will be an animated feature that will come out next, I think probably in summer of 2023. This is one of the movie posters for it. So the style is a little bit different, and the story is a little bit different, but I have nothing to do with it. But I think it looks amazing. So you can keep an eye out for that. It should be in movie theaters. So, okay. And then my last thing I'm going to tell you about is, so obviously I use a lot of pictures, and let's see, I'm going to stop my share. So if I have to draw something that I have not drawn before, or I have to design a character, I'm going to show you how I would get started, and then we'll use that information in the little drawing session that we're going to do. So if I have to draw, say, I'm going to share my screen again. If I have to draw a donkey and there's not one outside my house, I would go to Google, and it's pretty cool. I mean, when I first realized I could do this was like mind blowing. You can just type in the word donkey, and you can click on images, and you will get tons of pictures of donkeys. So here's what you can see. You can see, so I'll look at this and I'll be like, I'll pick one, maybe like if it has to be more realistic or something, I'll maybe find the view that I want. But I can look at the pictures of the donkey, and I can see what do they all have in common. They all have a white nose, obviously. They all have rabbit ears. They're shaped a little bit like a horse, which is an animal I'm more familiar with than donkeys, but I'll take a look and I'll look at what they, what can I pull from these pictures that will make my character recognizable as a donkey or whatever. They've got these big nostrils. What else? Something, they've got hair. They're usually brown. Sometimes if I'm going to show you this, actually I'll show you now, but like one of the animals was a manatee. So I could just type in manatee, and he, like, for me, manatees were like, I never saw manatees until I got to Guyana, and then I like just saw like their nose above the water. So it was really, I looked at a lot of pictures, and it was kind of hard for me to understand what I was looking at, like the shapes and stuff. So sometimes that happens where you're like, I just really don't get this thing that I'm looking at. And so then sometimes it can be helpful to type in drawing, and then I can see how other people drew it, and like, what did people draw about it that makes it a manatee? Well, the nose and the shape of the tail and the way the hands are that are flippers. So I can see, I'm not necessarily going to like copy their drawing, but I can see what all those drawings have in common, and if I can't figure it out just from looking at the photos. So so that's it, I guess. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, or I could just move on to the drawing part where we're going to draw some characters.
Yes, do ask your questions, pop those in the chat or in the Q&A, and I will let Sarah know what your questions are, and she'll happily answer them as best she can. So don't be shy, just ask any questions that come to mind. Thank you, Sarah. Honestly, that was the most fascinating presentation, and what a treat to see all of your research from Guyana. I mean,
thanks.
I didn't know some of those things either. I didn't know cashews grew on the bottom of a fruit.
I
never knew about pineapples growing in a bush. So,
yeah, I know. Me too. Yeah, I don't know. I never thought about that.
Like you, I have a fondness for hand lettering or hand painted signs. I love that. So we'll talk a bit more about actually how you choose your typeface, because you've obviously got your own handwriting that you use in your graphic novels. But yeah, everybody get ready with your drawing materials. Sarah's now going to show us how she creates her characters. So
okay, so I'm going to head over. So grab your pencils, and you'll just need a pencil and a marker or whatever you have handy to draw with. And I'm going to grab some paper here, and you can just use regular old Xerox paper, which is what I use. I'm going to switch my camera in 1 second as soon as I put a piece of paper down here. And there we go. So I'm moving next door to my desk to my drawing table. Okay, and here I have, it's not focused. So I'm gonna, there we go. All right. So I am going to use, so I have a mechanical pencil, which is pretty great because the point always stays sharp. You never have to sharpen it. You just keep putting in like a little piece of lead. It's great. It's pretty much always the same width. And I like that about it. So I'll show you how I would draw Francis, and then we'll draw a couple. So you can draw Francis, you can draw your own version of a donkey. But some of the things that I thought about, so I guess it doesn't really look that much like a donkey, but it looks enough like a donkey. He looks enough like a donkey that I don't know if I say people are a donkey, they believe me. So so like can you guys see my lines? Yeah, a little bit. I'll go over it in pen so you can see it. But I kind of would start with like a sort of half circle like that, and I draw a lot of rounded lines, and then kind of a snout that looks like that. I could probably just go and roll some rabbit ears. I probably don't need to sketch in pencil. I usually sketch in pencil, but it's a little bit hard to see. So I'm gonna just go straight into my brush pen so that you can see it a little bit better. So I drew a bunch of half circles. And again, I'm a big fan of solid black lines, like you could see from my favorite cartoons, like Underdog. But however you want to do it is fine. So the things that I thought, again, made a donkey are the white nose, and the big round nostril. And I usually like my characters to be smiling. Nobody's ever crabby in my books, which is so unlike real life. So I like that. So that sort of alternate reality where everybody gets along all the time, mostly. But yours doesn't have to be smiling. Your donkey can be doing whatever it wants, or whatever you want. And it's got, the donkey has a mane on the back of his head or her head. And then the other thing that makes a donkey is the color. So donkeys are pretty uniform in color. They all seem to have a white nose, and I'm using colored pencils here. So I have a cigar box full of colored pencils. I have, actually they're Prismacolor, which if you're buying colored pencils, Prismacolors are my favorite. And I'm just gonna go ahead and really quickly color it in. So if you want to also, I hope that you're drawing along with me. Again, you can draw however you want. You can use markers, you can use watercolors on your paper, but not on Xerox paper. But you can use markers and pencil on Xerox paper. So when I colored it in, I think in the book, Francis is gray, but I can't find my gray colored pencil. So brown will do, because sometimes donkeys are sort of brown. And then I just kept his nose white, because that was a thing that makes, that all donkeys seem to have in common, is the white snout. So and you can stylize yours however you want. Maybe you want to put a bow tie on yours. Maybe you want to put a hat on it. Maybe you want to give it a pearl necklace. We'll give Francis a pearl necklace. All right. And your Francis could be reading a book. I sort of made mine take up the whole screen, so I don't have too many. Actually, I could fit in some hands. What should Francis be holding in Francis's hands?
Oh, you're right. Yeah, write an idea in the chat what you think Francis should be holding.
Nothing gigantic. It could be like a small frog or a banana or a book or something, not like another horse, because I only have this much space. Let's see.
Well, it seems like everybody must be drawing away. I do have a question in the meantime. Karen, thank you for your question. And it's a good question. So do you write all the text by hand over your illustrations? How do you do text?
I did in the beginning. So technology has changed in the time that I've been doing books. In the beginning, I wrote them all by hand, and then you always have to make copy changes at the end, and it's a nightmare when you have done it by hand. So at some point, the publisher made it into a font, which became very easy. And so it's a font based on my handwriting. The type is typeset on the computer in this font that looks like my handwriting. And like the sound effects and the signs, I always hand letter. Like the things that probably won't have copy changes will be hand lettered, because I do love hand lettering.
Yeah. So you developed your own font, did you? Yeah.
So I just actually, you know what? If anybody, I don't know how old you all are who listening, but there's a pretty great. It's super easy now. Like there's a pretty great website where you can just type in you draw the alphabet and you scan it in, and it makes a font for you, and it's actually pretty good. And that website is called Calligrapher, and it's CALLIGRAPHR. So it's like the word calligrapher, but without the E at the end, .com. And I think that there's like a free version, which is amazing. You just like draw your alphabet on a piece of paper, scan it in, and then you get a font in like no time, which is pretty cool. And then I think you could pay like $5 extra and you get like punctuation or something like that. And you could pay a little bit extra to get different things about it, but that's pretty cool. And then you can like type it on your computer.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think everybody must be busily drawing away. So I'm going to have a suggestion about something. Oh, okay. Okay. So maybe Frances could be looking in a mirror because she's got such a lovely pearl necklace.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So for that,
a little handhold mirror.
Yes. I'm going to sketch that with pencil because I don't have the confidence to draw that in marker first or in brush pen. So let's see.
Sorry to interrupt your train of thought there with the drawing, but we do need to know, Zoe's asking, could you mention the spelling of that website again?
Oh, the website?
Yeah.
It's CALLIGRAPHR.com. So it's the word calligrapher without the E at the end.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there you go. I put it in the chat just so that you can see. Thanks, Sarah. That's good tips for people who might want to play around with putting the fonts into their graphic novels or comic book stories.
Yeah.
Actually, do you have anything as far as thoughts to advise participants regarding whether they should try out using all uppercase, or do you have any thoughts about that? Because you use lowercase as well, so that does take up a bit more space within the bubbles or the narration panels, just because you have ascenders and descenders. Whereas if you wrote all in capitals, which some comic writers do, then all of the letters are the same height. So I think
never thought of that. That's actually a good point. I think it's just whatever you want, but I didn't think that, all uppercase is more compact. Yeah,
I mean, do you, when you're doing your speech bubble, draw the speech bubble first and then fit the type in visually, like you can see, okay, I'm going to fit that in, or do you write and then put the bubble around?
Actually, I teach comics, and something I always say is before you do any, you can draw out your panel, but before you draw anything, write the words and put the balloon around it and make sure it's legible, because I think that's something that happens, especially with beginners, is they are really they're not excited about making the word balloon and writing the words. They're excited about drawing the picture, and then a lot of times they don't leave enough room, and then the words end up being really small. So even though it doesn't seem very fun, you have to put the words in first, and then you can draw the balloon around that. Sometimes if you draw the balloon first, you might not leave enough. You just don't know how big the words are going to need to be. So it's easier to write the words first. And if you're, if you're typesetting, again, I don't know what people's computer skills are like, but if you're typesetting, I was told by my publisher that the type should not be smaller than 11 points, which is, like a type size, like a fairly small type size.
That's good tip there. Thank you. So that's working out really well. Yeah, I gave you an extra little thing to have to think about, the reflection in the mirror, but that's so cute. I love it.
I like that suggestion.
It just came to mind with the with the pearls, which you might be admiring. Or he's admiring the new jewels that he's just got. So I actually really found that interesting, that you were able to go and visit a shoemaker right there, because the tools might have been quite different if you'd gone to visit a shoemaker in Brooklyn. So it was really nice that you got that opportunity to have a tour and see all the, that workshop's space and layout, etc. That was.
I would have gone, but there are no shoemakers. I mean, there's literally only a handful of people in the country making shoes totally 100% by hand. And he said, most of them are obviously made in factories, or some part is made in a factory.
Yes.
And he said it takes months, and they're thousands of dollars,
Right.
But he also said that they'll last you a lifetime.
Yes.
So I was pretty lucky. I was actually doing the residency, the Sendak Fellowship, which was in Connecticut. So I was very fortunate that he was in Pennsylvania, which was driving distance for me.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Got it. How's everybody's drawings coming along? I can't wait to see your characters. Are you having fun drawing a donkey, or are you trying something else?
Just sending. I would love to see everybody's drawing. So do send them in.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. If anybody needs more time, type in the chat that you could have, that you need more time. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to some other characters that we could draw.
Yes, your donkey could be holding anything you want. It could be holding a banana or something else.
Yeah, or a pet turtle or whatever.
Oh, yes. Exactly.
Okay, so there's my Francis looking in the mirror, and then actually like kind of well, I colored it in with colored pencil, but kind of a really great thing about using marker like a Sharpie or this brush pen is that you can when you're done and when it's totally dry, which doesn't take very long, but sometimes it takes a minute or so, you can just go back. You can go over it with this great Mars plastic eraser, which you could probably get at your local art supply store, or even probably Michael's would have it. And it's I think less than $2, and you can go over it and you erase the pencil line, and then it looks much neater. So that's a good trick. All right.
Sarah, do you then scan your traditional drawn characters in and do anything on the computer digitally afterwards?
Yeah. So I did my sketches on the iPad because there's that program that called Clip Studio that is great for making comics. It does the word balloons and the panel, so I don't have to like roll each one out with a ruler and measure it, which I did for some of my books, which took so much time. So I sketch in that program, but I really just don't like the way it feels. Like it's just not comfortable for me to draw on the computer. So I just still, you gotta like what you do, even though it might be faster to draw on a computer. So I do my outline on paper because that feels good. Like I can use my whole arm, which I can't do on the iPad, which is, I have the big one, but it's still not bigger than a piece of paper, like a piece of notebook paper.
Right.
So I scan the outline and then I color in Photoshop. Okay, so my next project for us is to, let's see, I have a couple of choices here. So I looked up a manatee, and this again, the manatee I needed to look at someone's drawing. So I printed out both the manatee, and I wouldn't usually print out my reference photos, but I would just look at them on my computer monitor, but it was for this demonstration, I printed them out because I think it's easier. So we could draw a manatee, we could draw an anteater, or we could draw a bush dog, which is like a weird wild dog who lives in the jungle and has really short legs and kind of a big barrel-like body. Or we could start with a sloth. So any preference?
Yeah, let's see what people are gonna say.
Otherwise, do you have a preference, Claire?
Oh, wow. I would like to see the anteater. Oh, bush dog. We got
someone did a bush dog. Okay. So you could so I'm gonna just put this, so I think you could see it. So yeah, so there's all these weird animals. I had never heard of a bush dog. In fact, my husband, obviously, as I think most people are probably in the United States, and something that we are familiar with are raccoons, but he wasn't familiar with raccoons. And there was a raccoon in our backyard one day, and he was like, "A bush dog! There's a bush dog in our yard." And I was like, "No, it's not a bush dog. It's just a raccoon." But so it's this cool, weird dog, wild dog that lives in South America. And so if I looked at this, so you can draw it however you want. I'll just talk about how I would draw it. Something that stands out to me, it's got this funny kind of, it's like a short bushy tail, which is different than like your pet dog. And it's got short stocky legs and kind of a long solid body. And it's got a head like a bear. With these little rounded ears and kind of a wide face with wide set eyes and, like a round snout. So I'll draw it my way and you can draw it however you want to draw yours. Maybe I'll sketch it out a couple of times and then I'll try and figure out how to make it into a character, and I'll think about like, what is it wearing? What is it? Is it mad? Is it, is it easygoing? What kind of character is it?
So Morgan says, Sarah, that the body sort of looks like a groundhog. That's reminding her of a groundhog. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. It does look like, it's like if a bear and a groundhog got together, if that were possible.
Definitely has a bear-like face, yes.
Yeah, and I think this is about, it's like maybe the size of a Shiba Inu or something like that in real life, maybe a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the size. So I was actually quite fascinated by the size of those giant anteaters. You said like almost the size of a German Shepherd.
Yeah, like a German Shepherd.
That's big.
Yeah, they're really big. I mean, they might be mostly hair.
Yeah.
They're pretty big.
pretty big. And they have a long tongue. Did you ever get to see a tongue shoot out? And
I didn't, but I read that their tongue can be 2 feet long. And
wow.
It's like out of its snout. Yeah, and you know, they eat termites.
Yes.
Even though they're called anteaters. So I don't know. This is kind of like the thing of night.
I like your bush dog looks very like sort of curious or startled by something. Surprise.
Like an evil clown somehow.
It's already got loads of personality within like a few lines. So do you think like sometimes as you're drawing, the personality kind of comes across just with the way you're drawing it to begin with, or are you thinking ahead of a personality? They happen simultaneously, perhaps.
That's a good question. I mean, most of my characters tend to be I don't know what's going on here. You know, tend to be friendly. You know, I'm doing stuff for kids, and also like I want to live in a world where everybody's friendly all the time and smiling.
I agree. Me too.
But I do have a character who's kind of crabby in Detective Sweet, who's a raccoon, who's based on my old neighbor.
Yeah, no, you have to have some other personalities because that's real life.
Yeah, I think right. If it's not so that is just my nature to draw smiling characters. If it's not something that's like sort of comes naturally to me, then I really, like you said, I have to like think of somebody like my neighbor.
Yes.
And then actually I named the angry raccoon, I named it Wayne because I put Wayne in a story in Sweaterweather, and there was like a chapter where I talked about how artists spend their time during the day, because I was about to quit my job and I was like, oh my God, what if I can't figure out how to do it? So I interviewed my friends who are like working artists, and I interviewed my friend Wayne, and he said I made him too nice and that he wanted me to make him meaner. So in Detective Sweet, I made him like the villain, like the crabby raccoon villain.
Yeah, I think, you know, kids also like to draw the villain as well. That's always like fun to think of their personalities, right? You have to think of the opposite of someone who's nice. You have to think of things that might be.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on the drawer, but some people would like, you know, like some people love like scary stories, and some people love, you know, horror stuff. So
that's right.
What do you like? Okay, so here's so I'm gonna make some modifications to make it a little less like an animal a horror movie, but somehow it is anyway. Let's see. I don't know if it's getting better or worse. All right, so now I'm going to ink it. So actually, kind of a fun thing about using pencil and inking is I can kind of make the changes that I want in ink. The
bush dog was a really fun choice. Thank you for the participant thought of that. That's a good. It was fun. I just drew it myself. It was fun.
Oh my gosh! I can't wait to see. And then like once I kind of figured out, I might, if I think you know, it's going to be a character, then I might do a couple more sketches, and I might probably, if it were going to be my book, it would be a character on 2 legs and wearing clothes.
Yes, so that's the other thing is, yeah, thinking about what kind of clothes might they be wearing.
Right. Like I don't know why I feel like this guy would be wearing a tuxedo or something.
Well, also, there's a difference between sometimes like drawing the animals as they are in real life on all fours to then making them more anthropomorphic when you have them standing up like humans do. So you can do more once you make your animal character have more human characteristics, because then they can be walking along, holding things in a different way than they might if they're on all fours, because they really need to be using probably all 4 legs to walk and run, whereas if you have them standing up, suddenly they can be holding all kinds of things in their paws.
Yeah, and you can imagine their personality and kind of incorporate that into your anthropomorphized version of them. So your book Sweaterweather, some of you might be familiar with that wonderful book, but it also has a great cover. Speaking of
you know, book jacket art, or, you know, creating the end papers. You had the deer was knitting, and then the scarf was wrapping around the whole of the back of the book cover to do all kinds of things, create tents and all kinds of things, like, and it ends up, yeah, I just loved how that book jacket had its own story. It was really nice book jacket design.
Thanks. Actually, I'll tell you, I'm gonna go grab my copy and I'll show you something about that.
Yeah, I'd love to see more about that. Oh, yours is so fun.
So yeah, that was the art director's suggestion. Sometimes they tell you what to put on the cover. So that was her suggestion, and actually it's reprinted from, or the first half is from like my very first book, which is why if you read it, some of the drawings, they're, you know, they're not, I feel like they could, there's definitely room for improvement. It was sort of my evolution. And the first half is taken from, it was my very first book that was printed by a small publisher, I think in 2003. And there was a story about a smoking snowman, where the snowman falls asleep smoking and ends up melting. And I was told I had to take it out because no, you can't trust smoking in stories anymore. So, so just FYI, the snowman who was cut is on the hardback.
Oh yes, yeah.
So he's still in there, and he's still alive, forever, and on the back as well. So
yeah, I love that. You can add these little surprises. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's if you yeah, if you get it from the library, I don't know if you can share it off. So okay, so there's my bush dog, and then I might I'll grab a new piece of paper, and then maybe we can make a character if you're interested, or we could draw somebody new and just draw a character. You know, let's draw a sloth. So I feel like I think sloths have, you know, they're pretty popular now. Oh, my junk is falling over.
Oh, they are popular, yes.
Yeah, they are having, they're definitely in pop culture a lot. And I think something that people really like about them is their face looks like it's smiling, which is pretty cool, just because of their markings. Mm-hmm. So, like they have this great smile. I don't know if you can, how well you can see it, but here's my reference photo. So, maybe I'll kind of figure out what the sloth face looks like, and then I can make it into a character. So again, the sloth has this funny, like a really round head and like a really round circular face. I don't know if you can see that very well. And then these markings on, it's like sort of stripes on his eyes, I guess. And this kind of weird looking sloth too. Sometimes when you're drawing stuff, it doesn't come out right on the first try. So that's not my favorite drawing ever. So I'm gonna draw it again.
Well, sometimes when you sketch first in pencil, you can just use that as a reference to when you do your brush pen outline. You can change things a little bit as you go along. Here's a question. So when you were a child, what were your favorite things to draw then? What did you mostly draw loads and loads of?
I did draw characters. Like I would say, like I always had a little cast of characters that I would draw, and they might change from year to year. So I feel like I'm kind of still just doing that, like, you know, imagined characters. They were like sometimes just shapes with faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at once, you know, this is like one of those formative memories that I always remember. In kindergarten, they were silverware. It was like a fork and a spoon and a knife, and they were utensils with faces for some reason.
Yeah, no, I think that's very creative. In fact, I think there's a book. I know there's a book. It's called Spoon. I'm just trying to remember who. Let's say. Oh. It slipped my mind who wrote that book, but it's very fun. It's about cutlery, and the spoon is actually jealous of the fork and the knife and the chopsticks and other utensils, but learns to then realize how great it is to be a spoon, because you can dive into ice cream. I want to say it's by Ruth Krauss, but I'm gonna have to.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, it is by Amy Krauss Rosenthal. I knew there was some Krauss in there. Yeah, okay, thank you so much, Morgan. Amy Krauss Rosenthal, awesome book. So yeah, check that one out too, it's fun.
Okay,
But you've done that too. You've created characters out of things that you wouldn't normally have faces on, like the food book. So was that the very first comic book though, graphic novel that you did with food, bake sale, or had you dabbled around with some other
yeah, that was my one and only, and I think I was, for some reason, Asian like characters are often food, and I think I was looking at a lot of like Japanese stuff.
Oh yes.
So I don't know why that's so much more common there than here, but that was my inspiration for that, and it was fun. You know, you can think about like, what is this box of, like, what would a box of raisins, you know, do as its hobby? You know, it leads to fun things to think about. You know, and I think like more than anything, if you just want to, you're kind of want to entertain yourself, so whatever you can do to make yourself laugh or smile is, you know, is great.
Yes, yeah.
And usually if you think it's funny, other people will think it's funny. It doesn't always work that way, but it, for the most part, it does. So
yeah.
All right, so there's my sloth. I kind of like that sloth.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, it's fun.
Better than this scary clown sloth over here.
He's another character.
Yes. Yeah.
A family of sloths, so they all have to have their own personality.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, I was thinking about food. You know, you really could think about the personalities depending on what kind of food it is. Like, if the food is kept in the freezer, what kind of personality does ice cream really have until it's maybe it becomes more fun when it's in a bowl with sprinkles.
Yeah, that's a good question.
But it's chilled. Oh, this is such a lovely sloth. Oh, yay. So they didn't have sloths when you were in South America, or did they?
I did not see them, but they do live there, and they live in the jungle, in the trees. I didn't happen to encounter any. I did not see any bush dogs, which I think are, actually, while I was Googling them, I read about them briefly on Wikipedia. I think there's not a lot of information about them. They're very reclusive.
Oh, right.
So we didn't see any.
So charming.
So yeah, so you don't have to make yours smiling. Maybe yours tastes to get up in the morning and is really, you know, crabby, or I don't know, scared or something. But my sort of go-to default is smiling. And then colored pencils are fun. I love to draw colored pencils. And this guy is, you know what? I always kind of pick colors, like the realistic colors, but he could be any color. So let's see, they. It could be pink. It doesn't have to be. That's like a thing I like. For me, I can't really get away from. I have a hard time deviating from what I'm really seeing sometimes. So let's make it a pink.
So Morgan has just asked a really good question. So when you first started drawing, did you draw in more realistic style and then develop a cartoon style? Have you sort of drawn both ways, or did you really gravitate quite quickly into more line drawing and your style developed really quickly?
I would say, like, again, my biggest influence is definitely Saturday morning cartoons, and
yes.
So, and I'm really not, like, I feel like everybody who works as an illustrator has their, you know, gift or forte or whatever. Like, some people, like, I am like amazed by the people who can draw like realistic stuff. Like, I just am not very good at it. I'm never going to be very good at it, but I can. So I think in a way, the way drawing animals and drawing these food characters, like, it doesn't have to look very realistic, and people will know what it is. Whereas, like, if you draw people, like, they really have to look like a person in a way that.
Although I think you drew yourself really well.
In
my pencil of me. Yeah, that was good. Instantly recognizable. Because
okay. Thanks.
You know, I think sometimes if you take some traits, but you're right, sometimes it takes an accessory or something that can really be helpful to drawing.
Okay, yeah, like a clue. Something
distinct. Here's a question about your book Odd Duck. So Odd Duck, you had to come up with these two different duck characters. How much sort of inspiration was in the text and how much just came straight from your own? Because a lot of times illustrators only get a manuscript without really too much description of what the characters exactly look like. There might be clues, but it's really left up to the illustrator to create those characters to add to the story. So with those characters, those two duck characters, can you sort of speak a little bit to how you develop those?
Yeah, I mean, so if it's for, you know, like this, nobody's telling you what to do, but when you work on a project like that, you are working with an editor, so you'll make different, you know, you might submit something, or you usually, I think like my rule is do 3 versions of something, and then, you know, let them pick from those 3. So I probably did like 3 versions of whatever I wanted it to be. That book was really, I mean, that book was really fun. Like I learned so much from working with someone's manuscript, and actually it was supposed to be a chapter book, and it was just going to have spots in it, and we changed that.
You made it such a great book. Yeah.
Yeah, it changed a lot. We actually kind of, the writer and I were working with this editor, and usually they separate the writer and the illustrator. But we were like, we didn't really, like, she didn't get it at all. And so finally we, like, behind her back, we contacted each other and we made the book that we wanted to make, and the editor didn't like it. And we actually ended up changing, like, we were like, they gave us our money back, and we found another house where we were able to do what we wanted. And so it became that sort of like full-length picture book. It was like, you know, like, or like longer picture book, like hybrid thing. Yeah, so yeah, and with that there was like a lot more freedom, and then I could draw a lot more. It left a lot more room for me to draw stuff because there were so many more pages.
Yes, you really, yeah, exactly. You turned it into more your style in every way. So mostly you're the author and illustrator of majority of your books, but do you still take on collaborations? Does that still just, how do you choose the story to speak to you?
I mean, I don't get a ton of proposals, but I do, I get them occasionally, and I'll only take it if we need something else here. I have to connect with the story. So that one was easy for me, because I kind of just, like, I feel like an ad duck. I mean, I think every artist feels like an ad duck. So I kind of drew like I felt like I was Theodora. And so that made her easy. And so that was one where I really loved that story. So I took it, and I could identify with that story. I just did one that I don't do a lot. It's actually really different for me. It has people. I wish I could show it to you. You know, I can show you. I have the proof over here. It was, so it's I think I can say it now. It's a thank you book to teachers, which is like, so, I mean, man, teachers really deserve a thank you after the pandemic. So, and it's written by somebody else, and they wanted people. So this is last page. Let me see if I can, where does it start? Oh, it's called Thank You Teacher. This is the title page, and I'll show you one picture. I hope it's okay.
Is that out yet, or is that coming out?
I think it comes. I think there's like a Teacher Appreciation Day of March. It's March of 2023.
Okay.
So it has. I don't know if you can see it, but here's a spread of like I had to draw a ton of backgrounds. It was for me, that was like really a challenge. Oh, there's like a glare from my.
Oh my gosh, they look like they're having a blast.
Yeah, so everybody but the teacher. I would see if you can. The teacher's not having a blast. Okay.
Oh no, she's not having.
Anyway, so yeah, so that was, I had to draw people. They wanted people for that. So that was like really a challenge. And they wanted, like, every scene is like a big busy scene, which was really hard for me. But I feel like it, you know, it was fun. It was, you know, at first, you know, when they're like, you know, when they tell you to make a ton of changes, you're like, no, but, and I didn't like it, but like, you know, now that it's done, I feel like I learned a lot doing it. It was a really good experience, and I'm happy with how it came out. And so it's my one book that's all people.
Yeah. So did you actually go and visit some schools to get some research and photographs?
I crowdsourced photos, which worked out really well. So I put like on my Instagram, I put, if if you're a school teacher and you can send me something you love about your classroom, something that makes your kids special, and some photos, then I would I gave them a thank you in the book. And I got great suggestions. Some of them, I think my favorite one that was that somebody is always picking their nose. And this was specifically like 1st and 2nd grade I asked for. And one teacher said somebody's always picking their nose. So in my original dummy, or like my original sketches, there was somebody picking their nose on every page, and the editors were like, you can do that once and that's it. So there's only one nose picker.
It's what kids are like, spotting that kid in the book.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
They may know somebody at school. Yeah, actually, I loved your idea of asking all your friends for their pets' names, because I was thinking, gosh, you've got to think of all of these original names for all your characters. And there are so many different kinds of dogs. So sometimes when kids are drawing cats and dogs, we discuss all the different types, and there are so many actually. So yeah, you've had to sort of really stretch the envelope to find all different breeds, and it's fun to resource through friends and ask them what the personality of their pet is like. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it was really easy and fast, and again, like, everybody likes to tell you about their pet. Like, who doesn't like their pet? Yes. Nobody doesn't like their pet,
And everybody knows that their pet has a specific personality too. So,
right. Yeah.
So that's inspiring kids. So if you think about, making a comic book or doing some illustrations with lots of pets in it, you can ask your friends and family about their pets. Just get some more insight about their personalities and try to draw those personalities into the characters that you're creating. You might want to put some clothes on them, or their expressions. If they've got big ears, you can make the ears expressive as well. Maybe you could talk a bit about that too. It's like you've had to create all the different expressions with all the different animals. You can change, you have to obviously draw your character because you're doing such long books. They're going to be in all kinds of different positions. You see them sometimes from behind, you see them from the side, 3/4 views. So do you do a lot of sketching prior, Sarah, to sort of get your characters looking,
get them right?
Like little thumbnails that you do in preparation for doing your spreads?
I think not with dogs, because it's like, I know what dogs look like. But yeah. I love dogs, so like I have to confess I'm not a huge cat person, so I hope nobody's offended. So when people are like, but I had a really hard time drawing the cats, because cats are like, I'm not like, whenever I see a dog on the street, like I'm like, oh, can I pet your dog? I'm like that weird lady, and so I really I know what all kinds of breeds look like, but I don't really know that much. Like I have to look at a picture of a cat still. So something like if it's a more unfamiliar character, I have to
study them a bit. Yeah,
I have to try, just like I did with that sloth, like the first, it didn't come out right the first time.
Yeah.
Sure. And that's fine, that's how you get to. And also something else is when you're, sometimes when you're drawing, something happens that you didn't expect, like here, like that leaf looks like a heart. So I wasn't going to draw, I didn't think of drawing a heart before, but it kind of just happened by itself. So I'm going to color it.
Oh.
So, as you go, things happen. It's like, and I think that happens too with when you're writing stories a lot of times, like especially with a longer story, it doesn't just all come out at once. Like you have to start, come up with a few sentences, and then you're like, have these few sentences, and then you can figure out what happens in between those sentences. But you couldn't have just come up with this finished story from the start,
Right.
Makes sense. It's sort of, it evolves. Like if you stick with it.
Yes. If the story starts to unfold, particularly if you're creating the personalities first, drawing all your little characters, a story will come to mind, like, oh, what might happen if this character meets this character?
Right. Yeah.
I'm sad to say that we've only got about 4 minutes left. And just to sort of remind everybody that we do like to see drawings, and this sort of character workshop, it really lends itself to you being able to draw a few things this morning, I hope. And you can revisit this program, because we have it on YouTube. It will be uploaded in the next week or so, so you can always come back to it. Sara shared so much incredible information this morning. We got to see how she really truly uses research and inspiration on trips. And some of you might be going on some trips this summer. You know, you have a summer break, maybe you're going to camp, maybe you're visiting family somewhere in a different part of town or another state. You can keep your eyes open and take some pictures, do some bring your sketchbook and do some drawings. Sara would love to see what you come up with.
Yeah, I would love to, and I would love to see your drawings from today.
Yes, we absolutely want to see your drawings from today. So thank you so much, Sara Varon, for drawing with us this morning, sharing everything behind the scenes. All your books are so endearing and magical and great inspiration. So do check them out at the library, or if you get them from a bookstore, go to your local indie bookstore and support your local bookstores as well. In the future, Sara will be doing book tours. She always does nice workshops, so you can find more things that she's got on YouTube. Visit her website, Chickenopolis, which is a really fun name for a website, and keep on drawing, keep on creating your characters. Thank you so much. And we're having guests saying thank you so much. Oh, yes.
Oh, thanks for coming. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope it helped you draw something new.
Yeah, I know they got a lot out of it, the participants. They're all busy drawing away. Have a great rest of your weekend and happy summer. And we really would love to have you come to the Society of Illustrators in person, Sara. So we'll look forward to that in the future. And thank you again.